What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? It is your boy Tony Shen. I am back with another beginner tutorial video. Now this is a video series where I go over the most essential skills you need to start off in FL Studio in order for you to take your beats to the next level and eventually get to selling beats, right? Now today we're gonna cover chord progressions. I'm gonna give you 3 tips on how to create beautiful chord progressions to base your melodies around. Now this is very important no matter what type of beat you're making, and it'll take you a long way. But before I get to that, if you're new to the channel, please hit the subscribe button. I have a lot of videos like this within the same series. I actually made a playlist, so if you want to learn other tutorials and stuff, I just love to give back to the community and share my knowledge. So let's get to it. Now today we're actually just going to use FL keys, so don't even worry about having to pay for Omnisphere or whatever. Like, again, this skill is applicable to like any VST you use anywhere. Even if you're playing like on a piano, right, this skill is applicable. So we're just gonna use FL key because it's super easy to it loads really quickly and it's easy. The first tip I like to give you for making amazing chord progressions is know when to use major and minor chords. If you want your beat to sound happy and uplifting and inspiring, use a major chord. If you want your beats to sound a bit sadder, dark, have more tension, use a minor chord. Now I'm going to show the difference, right? And you can actually pull these chords up really easily. FL Studio gives you a lot of tools to help you build these chords yourself. So all you have to do is click this button, go to major, and then click on the root note. So for example, if I click on A right now, that will create an A major chord because we selected major, right? If you want it to be B major, just move the root note to B, and that would be a B major. And again, G major, right? Same thing. So if you play it, it sounds kind of happy, right? Of your beat to be happier and more uplifting, use major chords. Now if you wanted to change it to G minor, you can hear a difference. It's a lot more dark, right? So let's actually erase this and then go to minor and then G minor, right? You can tell it sounds a lot more dark. Now I'm gonna do a side-by-side comparison. So this is major, this is G minor, and this is G major. Here with the minor, there's more tension going on. There's more, it's. But with the major, it's more uplifting and happy. You hear the difference? So now you have a G major chord, and you can play around with this more, right? Like copy this so you have another major chord, and then instead of G major, maybe try D major. So you go from G major to D major. So you can tell it's like if you wanted to just use this progression, you could totally create melodies around this progression. Again, you can tell it's happier, a lot more positivity. But if you wanted to do G minor, let's go up here, go to minor, so G minor, and then again, same thing, G minor to D minor, right? You can tell it's more dark, it's more sad, there's more tension going on. Again, you could make a beat, you can build more melodies off of this. But instead of being happy and uplifting, it's now sad and dark. So tip number 2 is once you understand how to use majors and minors, now it's time to use what's called an inversion and make use of inversions, right? So what an inversion is remember how let's just start with major, right? So say you go to major, you make a G major chord, right? And then you do it. Let's do a really simple progression. So D major, or G major to D major, right? It's a very simple progression, right? So this is called the root position, where you have the root note at the bottom, which is G, B, and then D, right? If you want to invert this chord, what you do is you can copy it here, right? Instead of having the G, which is the root note at the bottom, you could shift it up, and that will be an inversion of the chord. It's the same chord, but instead of having G at the bottom, you move G up an octave. So now B is at the bottom, right? And you could even invert it another time, and then instead of B being at the bottom, you have D at the bottom. Now it's the same exact chord, it just sounds a little bit different. Like for example, right? You hear it's different, right? It sounds different, but it's the same chord. So that kind of creates more variation within your chord progression. So instead of repeating the same chords being played the same way over and over again, like instead of having this just repeat, you could add some inversions to make it sound more interesting. So instead of maybe having this exact same chord, you shift G up an octave, and now you have, and then again with the D major chord, instead of having D as the root note, maybe have A as the root note. So that's this is the same chord as this, right? These two are the same chords, but it's just different inversion. It just makes it sound more interesting. You hear how it sounds different, but it's still the same chord, so it's in the same key. Just make use of inversions and change the way the same notes are being arranged. So this again is still G major and this is still D major, but you just arrange the notes differently to make it sound more interesting. And you can do this with minor chords as well. So for example, right, let's do G minor this time. So go to minor and G minor, and then the chord progression we did last time was G minor to D minor, right? Instead of repeating this over and over again, which sounds boring, have an inversion. So maybe here, instead of G being at the bottom, right, you move it to the top. So A sharp is at the bottom, or actually B flat is at the bottom. It's B flat, right? We'll talk about that later, but it's B flat. And then with the D minor chord, instead of D being at the bottom, maybe you have A at the bottom. So again, it's the same chords, but just arranged differently to make it sound more interesting, so you don't play the same exact notes every single time. And it gives it more direction, and it gives it just more variance. It makes it sound more interesting, right? Now, my last tip is, once you understand how to use major and minor chords, and once you understand to use different inversions, the third tip is less music theory oriented, right? It's less technical. It's just the mindset that you want to develop when using chords, and that's to always be open to trying out new combinations. Like, no matter how in-depth of music theory you understand, there's always going to be notes and chords that you play that just sounds good to you, but you have no idea what kind of chords they are. So let's just use this exact same chord progression like we did before, right? So this chord progression. So this is G minor, D minor, G minor again, D minor again, right? With tip number 3, what you can do to make this chord progression sound even more cool is to add more notes. Just use your ears and then listen and test out new notes to add to this chord progression. So for this first chord, maybe add F and see how it sounds. Maybe it's the second chord. Maybe add a G. Maybe add a B flat. So you see how we're able to turn a very simple chord progression into something that's like super cool and complicated. And to be honest, I had classical music training before, so I know music theory. I know how to read notes. I actually know how to read music and all that. But honestly, I don't even know what chord progression this is. Like, I don't know what chord this is exactly. I think this is a G minor 7th, but it doesn't matter. I wasn't thinking that when I added the note, right? Like, just by testing out these different note combinations, I was able to create something very complicated just by listening. And this takes practice, right? Like, the first 2 skills, once you learn them, once you just use them, like invert certain notes or know when to use major and minor, like you can do that right away. But this takes more practice, and this takes patience and just constant experimentation. So you hear that's more complicated, dark, tensiony, and sophisticated. That's me using tip number 3 in action, me giving you a live demonstration on how to use tip number 3, which is to always be open and always try out new combinations and chords. Do not restrict yourself just to major and minor and certain inversions of those chords, right? Like that is good to start out with, but once you make more chord progressions and once you get deeper into making beats and you want to make better and more sophisticated and complex melodies, you're gonna have to understand to just constantly test and experiment with different notes, even if it means going out of your comfort zone. So that's the 3 tutorials I have for you. If you haven't done so already, please make sure to subscribe. And I also want to announce that if you made it to the end of this video, I want to bless you with a free drum kit. I mean, you can make amazing chords and all that, but no beat is complete without drums, right? So I got you. All you have to do is click the link below and you'll be able to download my free drum kit, which is the Tony Shen Slap Hack Volume 1. But yeah, again, please make sure to subscribe. I have tons of tutorial videos that you guys can watch and learn from, and I also post videos very, very frequently. So thank you again. This has been great. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Peace.